Yeah, interestingly enough, the thing that kind of cracks me up is when we tried initially with the base compounds to find, like, you always do this thing called an LD50, which is a lethal dosing study to see what the toxic threshold is in the median population of the mice. And you couldn't identify one. Actually, that was a study.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a study that was done in 2012 by a group out of Paris, and I believe their university was in Paris, and they found that rather than actually damage the mice, they couldn't kill them with the substance. It ended up giving a 90% extension in lifespan, which was completely wackadoo. Yeah, that's
I know there might be some people on here who haven't had a chance to meet you, and I will continue to just talk about and, brag about your resume. And you can jump in and talk a little bit about that. I don't know what your time is like, or we can kind of dive in a little bit more into these therapeutics that you've created. Specifically, we're talking about the OlympicRX today, which a lot of people have actually asked about because they went and checked out the site and saw that there are too many things to choose from. So I got a lot of questions about, like, which ones do we do? Do we do all of them? Which is the best one? Can we combine them? Someone right now is asking if they need to take a big break from the Olympic and the Neuro to detox, or just continue forever. I think breaks are always good. We can address that question a little bit later on. But thank you, Kelly, for asking. We'll definitely address it. So how about we at least do that? Let's dive into that, because the title today is Beat Your Fatigue and Boost Your ATP. So before we even go into, OlympicRX and all the magical things it does, let's tell people what ATP is.
So ATP is adenosine triphosphate, and it's kind of the energy currency of your cell. So everybody always says the mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell, and the ATP is basically the gasoline that you use to fuel your body that the mitochondria produce. So it is the basic unit of energy currency in your body. And I always say this, you can survive for a month without food, a week without water, a couple minutes without air, a couple seconds without ATP. Your body would literally just shut down. So it is about the most crucial thing that we have going.
Right. And actually, and thank you for kind of putting it into that perspective, because I think that people can't grasp, and we can't grasp what it's like to be at war in another country unless you've been a service to our country and a soldier. So it's hard for us to grasp something, like ATP, what that means. So for you to break it down like that is really helpful.
Yeah, it is. A lot of these things, it's kind of funny, unless you play with them every day. If you start talking about redox potential and things like that, unless you actually work with it all the time, it's really such an abstracted concept that it just makes no sense. But ATP, just think of it like gasoline for the motor. That's
okay.
Basic.
Yeah, so gasoline for the motor. So that's a great way to put it, and a great thing to remember. And people are saying that's fascinating. Thank you for the explanation. So today we're talking about OlympicRX, which is helping you enhance that gasoline, right? And have a higher capacity of it for that synthesis. So let's break that down. What does that mean? What is OlympicRX? What is it made of, and how does that process work when you use it?
Okay, so most of...
Oh, and by the way, sorry, Giz is blocking. So this is what we're talking about today, you guys. This by Wizard Sciences called OlympicRX, and there is a link to this in my bio. I think it's its own link, right? It's its own link. Nobody's looking at me right now, but that's okay. It's its own link. And you can go there, and I think there's a code. At least the link works, and I think there's a code too. Maybe it's
there should be somewhere. So
okay, cool. So that's all there, and it's also under our longevity lifestyle series, because this is, something that both Dr. David Sinclair and I both really support and use and love. So it's in multiple places, but that's this product that we're talking about today.
Yeah, that plays into the concept of, I know that David actually likes it because it's bound to oleic acid, so it's a sort of 2-in-1. activator, which is different than the NeuralRX, which is bound to caprylic acid. And that's actually something that fractionates in your liver and turns to ketone bodies so it can go to your brain. So this is actually really specific for the remainder of your body. So Neural really does handle cognitive function and cognitive deficits because your body actually sends everything to your brain. This goes throughout the rest of the cells, so just standard somatic cells in your body, which is kind of the sciencey way of saying a normal physical cell. And so what happens is you take oleic acid, which is the primary component in olive oil, and you bind it to carbon-60, which is that soccer ball shaped molecule that's all made of carbon. And it gives the properties a big boost. And so basically it acts as an antioxidant buffer. And so it moves through your cell membranes once it's bound to the lipid. If you don't bind it to a fat, and the nanoparticulate can't make it through your cells because the term is hydrophobic. So they just won't work with things that are based in water. And so most of your body needs things that are hydrophilic or water bound, or have a tendency towards working with water to move through your cells. So if you bind it to a fat, it actually allows it to move through the cell membrane. And then what happens is that carbon nanosphere delocalizes off of that, and then it finds its way down to the mitochondria, which is the same principle that happens in NeuralRX, that happens localized in your brain. This happens everywhere in the system. So it buffers the oxidative stress load. And what that really means, it's kind of an abstract thing, but what it really means for us is that you lose a lot of energy in your cell when you just have reactions going. And so when you stop those at the surface of the mitochondria, what happens is you're just blocking the loss in the system. So you get this huge boost of between 18 and 58.3% additional ATP, which is a huge boost, right? Actually, when we saw that in the lab, it was kind of a woo. It was it's a giant jump. And that was just from blocking system loss. So, you've got two things that are going on. You have the kind of the up cycle where you're adding energy, and then the down cycle where it's dropping. So we took out the bottom part of the cycle, so we're not losing it, but it had nothing additive initially. So if you look at the products on the site, there's Evolve, which is just oleic acid and C60. So it just handles system loss. The difference with the OlympicRX, the genesis for it was I was working with these guys who were doing the Olympic trials last year. And they were trying to get these little bitty gains, like 1%, 2%, which for elite athletes, that's what you're doing, right? You're looking for just seconds to make the difference, or just in their case, centimeters to make the difference, because they were all pole vaulters or called it reverse limbo. So they were kind of trying to do their thing and get these little bitty gains. But I thought, why do that? I can shift cellular dynamics and get these huge output differences. So let's see if it cascades up. And as it turned out, the effects did cascade up. So I use nicotinamide mononucleotide, which is one NMN, and resveratrol, another, because they're kind of like the gas in the gas pedal intracellularly as well. So it adds this huge boost on the positive side of energy production. So not losing it, and you're suddenly adding a ton in, you get these huge jumps in output. And then I put CoQ10 or ubiquinone 50, which is another form of CoQ10 to it, and then astaxanthin and a couple of other compounds, just so that I could work out very specific points in the chain of the electron transport chain and modulate different complexes so I could get this huge boost and output. And so what the athletes found was getting, instead of 1 to 2%, 13 to 17%. And it was ridiculous. That's not what they ever see. So they measured grip strength, and grip strength machine. And this cracks me up. I still have the picture. I'll send it to you. Yeah. Guys, did, I think 160 pounds was kind of max. And they broke 200 pounds and actually cracked the machine. And they said, said, OlympicRX at work. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So this was after using OlympicRX for how long? How many days?
3 weeks every day. Mm-hmm. And actually, interestingly, I just posted a thing to my story today, a little thing to my story that someone had tagged me in, because they're a cyclist and they've been using OlympicRX for 3 weeks. And a woman named Stacy Masora, and her output levels went up to what actually surpassed what they had been in 2011. So
wow.
put up pictures and all the stats. Yeah. So in terms of her cycling capacity at 50, she's actually exceeding what she was able to do at 40 after 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Giz is having a tough cough day. Can you hear him? We didn't want to give him, cough meds because it makes him pass out. He doesn't like being on that, but I think he might need a little bit of med today. And Giz, watch. We'll go into this later because you guys have to stay tuned into our series. But Gizmo actually uses a product from Ion, and it's helped him quite a bit. So that's super helpful. He's actually having some right now.
Woo!
Yep, there you go, buddy. Okay, so we have a ton of questions.
Let's do it.
We have a ton of questions, and a lot of it is about usage. When to use it, best time of day. Do you use it pre-workout, post-workout? How to use it in conjunction with the NeuralRX, which I don't have here right with me now. But if you guys, the replay is up, and you can check out our first part of our live series where we talk extensively about NeuralRX, and I encourage you guys to go and watch that. You'll see how that bottle looks like. So let's dive into that for a second. So how should we use this? When do we take it?
Okay, so it depends a little bit on what you're trying to do, but consistent. Yeah. You'll want to take Olympic at the same time you take Neural. And actually, I was answering a question on Instagram this morning. Someone DM'd Wizard Sciences because they've been using NeuralRX for 3 months consistently, and they saw big gains at first, and then it leveled off. And right. What actually is happening there is your body's always looking for a homeostatic balance. It's looking for the most beneficial homeostasis you can end up with. So what happens is when you have something that's a real broad spectrum anti-inflammatory antioxidant, in the case of NeuralRX, typically it's preferentially going to the brain. But if the rest of your body is needing something, it will actually delocalize that and move it around to where it needs to go. And so your benefits will taper off. So I recommended taking the OlympicRX in conjunction with it, right? Because then everything else in the system, the inflammatory response drops. That's one of the benefits of other than just the antioxidant behavior is it craters cytokine levels. So within 2 hours, the cytokines just plummet. And cytokines are inflammatory markers in your blood. And so when all of your inflammation drops, everything functions more effectively. So in the case of kind of leveling off, if you add the Olympic in, then system-wide, you don't have as much stress on your body. So your performance can go up and you can start to use the energy capacity there that would be otherwise, your body does. It forms homeostatic balance. And because that's the most efficient way to do it. So I always tell people, you want to do both. If you're doing athletic performance stuff, you'll want to take the OlympicRX in the morning, preferably on a stomach. Now, if you're going for like hypertrophy and you're trying to get, big and bulked up or something like that, I don't actually really recommend it until after, because it'll knock out the inflammatory response. And what you're actually looking for when you're working out and trying to get or hypertrophy in your muscles is you need little micro fissures and tears. And if you take the Olympic beforehand, it's not going to happen.
Get that.
Right? You just won't get it. You'll have to work so much harder, because people typically see in the span of 2 to 3 weeks, they'll see about a 15 to 20% output and just at maxes across a whole host of things, which sounds great, but it's actually a little bit misleading because your cells are outputting more power. Your sarcomeres, kind of the muscle fibers, they can output more power. The problem is people oftentimes they get really amped up and they're like, oh, I'm moving all this heavy weight and I can do all these things I couldn't do. But their tendons and ligaments don't progress at the same rate that their muscles do, right? So if you don't use something like PIM for red lasers to stimulate chondrocytes and get your cartilaginous regions to start propagating more and more and more rapidly, then you end up with a situation where your joints are overtaxed because your muscle so much more. And it's actually, there's a good Russian study on it that shows that with regard to the C60, it's a dose-dependent curve. So the more you take, the more output you can have. The problem is that's muscular, right? So your blood flow they're very vascular, right? They're all vascularized. And when people look at their veins, that vascularity shows up when they're working out. That doesn't happen inside your tendons. So I always, like, when you start taking the stuff and you get like this kind of Captain America output boost, feels great at first, but I can attest, having pulled my back and torn my hamstring twice, you have to kind of go slowly, because otherwise the output capacity that you think you're having isn't really in accord with what your joints can handle.
Right. And that is such an important reminder. And, thank you for emphasizing that and taking the time to explain that, because I think that, especially in this audience, like, we're all trying to heal and optimize our health, and, we're just trying to be the best version of ourselves that we want to be. And it's a balance, like these, I call these magic serums because they are in so many ways, but there's still, you still kind of have to like take responsibility. And actually, it's more than just taking responsibility. It's kind of empowering yourself with like knowing what's going on inside your body and knowing that there's a balance, and that products like this can really help you achieve your goals. But you have to balance. So like Ian said, like PEMF and red light therapy, things to help with your ligaments and your collagen production for your ligaments, to balance out that muscle growth is really important. And so
we're a big system, right? A lot of people just I teach biochemistry, so a lot of people just think of bodies as these biomechanical machines, but they're really not. They function photonically, electrically, electromagnetically, chemically, biochemically, and you have to address all of those different components. And if you don't look at the totality of it, you end up with a deficit somewhere. And I just think it's important.
Yes.
These serums really are great. Like, they're the best thing that I was able to do, because I wanted to, in the case of Neural, fix people with Alzheimer's. In the case of Olympic, help guys that were trying out for the Olympics.
Right.
So there was a purpose to all of this stuff, and it was the best I could do. But it's still a component, right? There's all this other stuff that's necessary, and if you focus on one, it will leave you in a deficit.
For sure. So again, always about balance. And then again, I always like to make the disclaimer that these are our suggestions. These are products that we love, that we use, that work for us, that we may recommend for, our clients and our patients. But always check with your health practitioner to make sure that it's suitable for you. And always recommending you guys to get your labs done so that you know what's going on inside your body. So we have obviously a lot of questions, and I can tell that you're peeking at them. So let's talk about some of the ingredients that are in Olympic, which I'm going to hold up again for you guys right here. Many of you guys DM and ask. You can always go to Ian's account. There's a pinned comment right here. Go to his account, go to Wizard Sciences. You can go and find it there. You can go to the link in my bio. There's a discount for my community. There's no special code, I don't think. You can just click on that link and it takes you there. And go check out all the things. So this is Olympic, and we talked about Neuro last time. And you can do them together, which is what is ideal. But there are some ingredients that are in both of these serums that people kind of take independently. For example, PQQ or NMN or resveratrol. So there are questions about whether or not they should stop what they're taking separately and supplementally if they use these products, or is it okay to do both?
No, it's definitely okay to do both. If you get more than you need, your body will process them and get rid of them. And it's really beneficial, because generally speaking, we're kind of at a deficit most of the time. We don't, you're not going to overrun unless you're taking the, 300 milligrams or something like that of CoQ10, you're really not going to overload it, because that's about as much as you can take in this form and metabolize it. I'd actually say if you're looking at something like that, take Shilajit. Because you can take a gram and it actually does a more thorough conversion intracellularly. So again, there are other things that you can use as components, like the astaxanthin in this. Typically, it's thought of as an antioxidant, and it is a good antioxidant, but it's the way it's approaching the buffering is a little different than the way the C60 does it. So I'm trying to buttress everything so that everything is supported. The peptase in here is great because it's more of an anti-inflammatory, but it's a proteolytic enzyme. And that's the fancy way of saying it breaks down proteins. And so in a body, your joints, as you age and you start to use them, you end up with scar tissue. So like rheumatoid arthritis, the big issues is you have all this sclerotic tissue inside your joints, and you move it, it gets inflamed and sore, which creates more inflammation. And it's kind of this negative feedback loop, and it gets worse and worse and worse. So with the inflammatory response dropping from, say, like C60, then you pump in serapeptase, it drops the inflammation a little bit, but it actually goes in and it eats the sclerotic tissue and breaks it down into smaller components so that your body can process it out in the lymph system, which is very similar to kind of the approach that I took with the amyloid plaques and the tau protein, right?
Yeah.
Do all this stuff. It just sometimes the older we get, it needs a little bit extra oomph. And once you get a bit of extra oomph to get over the hump, then you're golden. Yeah. So that's kind of what people are doing. And then things that are missing in this, you don't have the pyrroloquinoline-quinone, the PQQ, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is your cells, because you're taking a smaller amount relative to the target area. So with NeuralRX, you've got a 3-pound at most target area. And with this, you've got whatever your body mass is. So the relative amount, you have enough mitochondria of the 4 quadrillion or so that you've got to actually distribute the load, as opposed to in your brain, the extra energy needed to be distributed. So that's why, if people look at it, that's why that component's missing, is because you've already got enough. So we need more in.
Right. Good. And that's why, again, it's good to kind of take them both. It kind of covers everything. And then something that I'd like to add to that is just stay well hydrated, you guys. This is something that I've talked about quite often, and just a reminder to always stay well hydrated and try and detoxify your body, because as these things help you detox, let's say, your brain with the NeuralRX, it's just helpful if we can assist our bodies in releasing anything that we don't need, that these things can help clean out and clear out. And that also comes with hydration. So simple things that, it's again, just being balanced with everything. You can have these serums and they're going to help support you, but you want to make sure you do all your basics as well, like movement, release, sweating, hydration, all of that is super good. So let's try and get to some of these questions that we answered. The ones, about like when to take it. That was such a great answer. It was just, kind of depends on what your goals are, right? Someone asked a question about C60, if it was in the Olympic. Yes.
It's in a really highly bioavailable capacity. And just for anybody who's kind of a nerd about carbon 60, it's 1.2 mg per mil. So that's typically, it's thought of that the capacity peaks out at 0.8 mg per mil. So this is about 150% of what is normally thought of as the cap. And that's actually, like a lot of things, it really wasn't the cap. You can actually do upwards of 3 mg per mil and going. People just didn't really look at the binding properly. I spent just trying to figure out how to get the stuff to bind properly.
Mm-hmm. And you did, because you're a badass genius. So, okay, cool. People are asking about dosages. So I think that's a really important question to cover for this in particular, because of the different goals that people have. Obviously, men and women, if it's different. Great question here is different for body weight, men versus women. Actually, I didn't even see that, but yeah, that's a great question. So let's address that.
Okay, so men versus women, not really so different. Your body is take the energy and utilize the extra capacity where it needs to be. A lot of this stuff is unlike taking the approach of kind of a blunt instrument. What you're really doing with a lot of this is you're giving the body back the capacity energetically that it needs to actually fix itself in the way that's most appropriate, right? You can't. One of the problems with a lot of allopathic things when you actually design drugs is it's just one molecule working one way. That's why I really prefer supplements, is because you can actually sort of tailor things so that you give people the ability to actually fix themselves the way they need to be fixed, as opposed to trying to hammer one component molecularly. And it doesn't work well. And in terms of body weight, totally different. Smaller body, you'll need less. I always recommend taking more of the Olympic. That's what I do personally, but really, it's still, most of the times you're not actually going to take as much as you really could take. There were times when I took a bottle a day when I was doing the actual testing on this stuff, and that was a little bit ridiculous. But I just wanted to see what the threshold was.
And that was just eyeing, you guys. That's not for you guys to do.
Don't do that.
Just want to make sure. that you guys don't do that. Use what is listed on the label, and always check with your practitioner based on your own body type, your own body disposition, and what your goals are. So, there's some questions about detoxing and whether or not it would be helpful to add a binder in at any point to boost the detoxing effects.
Actually, interestingly enough, so you could add a binder in, but it's not really necessary because the base compounds are renally and hepatically protective. So when you're actually working with mice in the lab and you give them the base compounds, so like the Evolve or the MCT C8 products that are on the website, those are just the base compounds that don't have all the extra goodies added in.
Right.
But just playing with those, say with the Evolve, if you give that mice via oral gavage, when you try and knock them out, you have to give them about 2.25 times as much as carbon tetrachloride, or because you just can't get them to go down. So you keep hitting them with CCl4, and they just kind of keep running, and then eventually they'll actually go down.
Right. So that was really helpful, you guys. And just as a reminder, this is recorded. If you sign up on our email list, then you will get the link to the replay sent to you as soon as it's ready, of course, with links to everything else. But if you go to Ian's account here, that's pinned in the comment here, you can go follow him, follow Wizard Sciences. You'll go and you'll be able to check out all of this. If you go to the link in my bio, you'll get a discount link to the products that we're talking about right now, and you'll see the links to the replay. So just as a reminder, we're talking about this, which is the OlympicRX. We were talking about the NeuralRX last time, and the recommendation is that you do both. For the RX, for the OlympicRX, and you were saying take it in the morning on an empty stomach. And if they're taking it with the Neuro, okay to do both at the same time on an empty stomach?
Yeah, perfectly fine. It's what I actually would do. If you want the most impact, take them both in the morning on an empty stomach. And after a while, if you're doing like, intermittent fasting, if you're kind of on an IM regimen, it's great because in the morning, it doesn't kick you out of ketosis, but you get a crazy pop of energy. And so it's really actually fantastic if you do it that way.
Yeah, and I can also add that I've tried it different ways at different times of the day, even though, I do in the morning. And at first I'm just like, I don't want my matcha. So, but it is much better if you do it. You absolutely feel the effects if you do it first thing in the morning, maybe after your lemon water, as I do, before you do anything else. And so you're still on an empty stomach, and doing those two things is ideal, and you'll really feel the benefits. There were some questions about Shijulai, which we don't really promote other brands when we're on these things, but just as a supplement, highly beneficial, as Ian said. And I would, all recommendations when it comes to supplements, like make sure it's GMP certified, it's well sourced, ideally organic, of course, and then just check so that there aren't any other additives. Companies that are transparent will always send you their certifications and their third party certifications and reviews and all of that, and they'll let you know how much metals are in everything. So if a company isn't giving you access and they don't already have it, it's okay if they don't have it on their site, but if you call in, they should give you that information. So that was a question about Shijulai. And then about CoQ10, there's varying amounts that are recommended. I don't know what you would recommend, Ian, but it's different. Let's say if you're, if you're looking to get pregnant, if you're working on your fertility, if it's just for daily maintenance, it kind of depends what you're taking it for. And then of course you can also take it in like ubiquinol. You can take it in a different form too. So maybe we could just talk about that for a second because it's in these products.
Yeah, I wouldn't really recommend more than say 20 milligrams in a day in this form. And the reason for that, and that's if you take, a tablespoon of both of those, you'll be below that threshold. And the reason for that is that buffer solution that it's in actually keeps your stomach acid from breaking it down, as opposed to normally take it. If you take 300 mgs, you're going to get just a fraction of that because your stomach acid breaks it down. It's the same thing with the proteolytic enzymes. Like serapeptase used to actually be a drug in Japan, but it got downgraded from a drug to a supplement because when they would test the levels in the blood, you couldn't get enough past the GI tract to actually make it into the blood, make a dent, because it gets degraded by stomach acid. So one of the things that early on is we ran all the tests with this and found that we could stabilize it in that buffer solution to keep stomach acid from breaking those components down. So you do this thing called gel electrophoresis, and you look at the readouts to see where the protein is degraded and where it's not. And we were actually able to keep it stable through the stomach acid, and then also up to 80 degrees Celsius, which is, if you hit ADC internally, you have problems. So yeah. You don't want to be 160 degrees internally. That's a bad
right.
joke.
No, we don't want that. Yeah. Some people that question came up again about when to take it, and again, that depends on what your goals are. If you're trying to build muscle, then Ian's recommendation was to take the Olympic after the workouts.
Yeah. After. Hi, Kelly. Yeah, definitely take it afterwards if you're trying to build muscle.
And then if you have other goals and it's not so much about building muscle, then obviously, like you said here, if you're just getting old, Kelly's funny, so I love that she chimed in. Then you could take it, earlier. It just depends on what your goals are. So this has been really helpful as always. I love, and everyone's saying that they love, people who already use it say they love it. What about something I forgot to address last time actually is, let's say someone is they're either pregnant or they are trying to get pregnant. How would this product benefit? Let's address men and women separately. And, if it's even okay to take once someone is pregnant, like for the women. So maybe you could address that, because I do have a good percentage of my audience who are women, and there's always a percentage of my female audience that's in the process of fertility or pregnancy or right after, and they're breastfeeding.
Well, I can tell you, so a lot of that is dependent in terms of the mitochondrial deficits that people have. And I noticed a lot of this after people would have COVID. People would start losing hair and things like that. And those are all related to hormones, but the hormones would dysregulate because the highest points of mitochondrial density in a body are your heart, your eyes, your brain, and in a woman, your ovaries, to the tune of, say, 20x what your cardiac tissue is, has about 5,000 per cell in terms of the mitochondria. So for women, it's really, really impactful because it can help bolster their system from kind of the cascade up from the mitochondrial level to the system level. And then their endocrine system will actually start changing outputs. We actually, early on, I had a bunch of women who were already in menopause, and it rolled them out of menopause, which, and I was contacted a couple times, and I thought, woohoo, this is fantastic. I was like, oh,
wait, now, which one is this? Let's be specific. Is this the Olympic or the Neuro? This is the Olympic that we're talking about that rolled some women out of menopause.
Yeah. And so I thought, like, this is fantastic. This means that, biologically you're rolling the clock back. And I was really happy about it. And I was not met with the same sort of appreciation, because I didn't realize that it might be somewhat inconvenient for people to go back into estrus after being out. So, they were not so terribly thrilled, actually. So 50-year-old women who were starting to have their periods again, they were a bit annoyed. But from a biological perspective, it's great because it means that you're really genuinely rolling the clock back, at least in terms of the energetic capacity, and hit markers where your body goes, okay, we're still good to reproduce. So from that standpoint, I would actually recommend it. I mean, technically, I don't know that I'm allowed to really recommend that you take this if you're pregnant or nursing. Personally, I will say, if it were someone that I knew and I was, we were friends or involved or family, that's what I'd recommend, just because it's far more beneficial. And the same from the male perspective, I will say definitively, because I have the blood work on this, fan-freaking-tastic, because it starts to skew up your testosterone levels. So your energy output goes up, your inflammation goes down, and your testosterone starts to spike pretty massively. In the case of one guy that I remember in his mid-70s, he was 75, his testosterone was around 1,100. Another was a cancer patient who was he was 72, so he was in his 70s also, and his went up to 800. And those are those are ranges that you would see in guys who are either in their teens or their early 20s.
Right. Yeah, and just to give you guys perspective on that, if you aren't familiar with the ranges for testosterone levels, if at 1100, 800, 1100, that is definitely someone who is like, a teenage boy, or maybe in the early 20s, teenage college,
Yeah.
So just to give you some perspective, there was a question about whether or not that's because of the NMN that's in the product, or more the combination of the ingredients that are in the product.
Interestingly, I can say definitively it's not the NMN. The NMN is additive, but it only potentiates the effect a bit. And so if you look at people who have just taken the base components in this without NMN, it skews up. If you look at it with NMN, it skews up really massively. And it's actually a much shorter timeline, because when people are doing NMN consistently and then suddenly they start taking one of these, it will spike. And you can almost correlate the point at which they've started taking these compounds, in addition to having a solid baseline of, say, NMN and resveratrol, because it hockey sticks at that point.
Yeah. Go Kelly. Kelly's talking about her husband and how he takes every day, and he's got testosterone level of 900 plus.
Yeah.
63 years old. So, really fans. So
it works.
That's amazing.
If you're a guy, oh my God, do it. You'll feel so much better, because if your testosterone level is low, everything just kind of sucks. Your libido drops, your energy level drops, your drive drops. And when it starts to spike up, you just feel pep, you're zippy.
Yeah. So just to circle back for women, whether you are menstruating women, perimenopausal, postmenopausal, this is beneficial. If you are trying to get pregnant, if you're working on your fertility, this is something that is beneficial. And this is obviously all just what we're discussing. We're not necessarily making suggestions or recommendations. It's just from our experiences and your findings, and this is all opinions. And then, of course, if you are pregnant or nursing, all of this is, check with your doctor and check with your lab work. But in your experience, you feel that it's safe in smaller doses. I would say smaller doses.
Interestingly enough, the thing that kind of cracks me up is when we tried initially with the base compounds to find, you always do this thing called an LD50, which is a lethal dosing study to see what the toxic threshold is in the median population of the mice. And you couldn't identify one. Actually, that was a study.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a study that was done in 2012 by a group out of Paris. And I believe their university was in Paris. And they found that rather than actually damage the mice, they couldn't kill them with the substance. It ended up giving a 90% extension in lifespan, which was completely wackadoo. That's
which is epic. Actually, you shared that study with me. I already knew that, so I'm glad you shared that again. We have questions about what we're talking about for some people who have joined a little bit late. We are jumping off pretty soon, but we are talking about Wizard Sciences, the OlympicRX. I know this is probably backwards for you guys, but this product is what we're talking about today in our live today. What we talked about in our last live as part of our, multiple part series is the NeuralRX that is also by Wizard Sciences. And you can find, and the recommendation is that you take these both together at the same time, preferably in the morning on an empty stomach if you can. And unless you're trying to build muscle, in which case you want to do the Olympic after you work out. But there's a link if you go to Ian's Instagram account, which is pinned here in the comment, you can go there. You can go to Wizard Sciences. You can find all these products. You can go to my link in bio, and there's a special link just for Wizard Sciences. And there's no code that you need. It's just a link, and then you'll get a special discount for the Serena Loves community. So you can go there as well. And for those of you guys who are taking lots of notes and want to share this, we will have replays of our live series up usually a few days after. And if you're signed up for our list, then you get a link sent to your inbox with a replay plus notes and links to get everything that it is that you need. You can also just search for it on YouTube or Facebook. So just a little bit, just notes for you guys to know. And I would really recommend that you guys go to Ian's account, not just give him a follow, but put on post notifications, because we let you guys know when we come on live to talk about another epic product. And we're going to be doing this for a little bit, for at least until we've covered everything. And then we might even have other topics. But we have a lot of incredible products and therapeutics to go through. So if you turn on your post notifications, and when we share about it, you'll know, and you'll be able to set your alarm to see when we come on. So I hope that was really helpful. Are there things that you want to add? I know that everyone really enjoyed it. So thank you guys for all your support.
One little thing. And thank you. I always love seeing you. One thing, if you're taking the NeuralRX and you're taking it in the morning on an empty stomach, go light. Because it's in caprylic acid. A lot of people take it as brain octane. It's the same thing. Just go slowly, because it really will cause some pain in your GI tract. If you build up, it's fantastic, and you'll actually feel so much better when you wake up and take it. But you just really need to build up to it, because otherwise it hits your stomach and you're like, oh my God, this is really rough. And and it's
that's such a really good point. And when Ian says, go slowly, he just means take a small dose. So just start with like a half teaspoon, or 1 teaspoon to start, and then titrate up, which means you just add a little bit more each time over time. So I would say give yourself a week, a week. Yeah. Some of you may only need 3 days, but give yourself like a week, maybe 2 weeks. It just depends on your body's disposition to kind of get used to it. And your body always tells you. So when it's a little bit too much, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel that crimpiness, and you'll know. And it's always better to work in harmony with what your body is able to receive. You'll get the most benefits that way. So it's not like, you're like, I can do it, let me just take 3 teaspoons. That is not necessarily better for your body. So just a reminder. Well, this is awesome. Yeah. I love you, and I love seeing you, and this is super fun. I think everyone had a great time. If you guys have questions, you can send them directly to Wizard Sciences, or you can send to Ian, but he's pretty busy, conquering the world. So if he doesn't get back to you, then just send something to Wizard Sciences or email them, and he has an epic team. But I really encourage you to go check it out. Check out the site, his Instagram account, Wizard Sciences Instagram account. This is what we're talking about today. This is what we talked about last time. Take them together. And if you go to the link in my bio, you will see links to Wizard Sciences, and you'll also see like the links to YouTube, or where our replay is. Is our replay up? Does anybody know? Yeah? Okay, cool. So the replay for the NeuralRX is already up if you want to go and check it out and get all the science behind this product, which is what I also take. I take them both every day, which is what really helps your brain. So that's it, you guys. I'm super excited that we did this, and we're going to do this again in like a week, I think?
Yeah, a week.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, yay. Thank you. Have a beautiful rest of your day. I will talk to you tonight, right? Like late night. Okay, we're having our bestie chat tonight, just in case you're all wondering. And then I will see you all very, very soon. Thank you so much for staying on with us today. Talk to you guys soon.
Bye, guys.
Okay, bye.